Hey, welcome to the channel, and our first video is going to be on how we are converting from oil, forced air, furnace, and hot water to geothermal. So it's 2022, and we're going to walk you through the whole process of how we made the decision, what we were paying before, going through the greenhomes energy audit process, how much that costs, how long it takes, what you get out of it, and then how we made our decisions and what the work looks like converting to geothermal, also known as ground source heat pump. So right in front of me here, you can see I've got our glorious circa 1990s oil furnace. We actually replaced this furnace about a decade ago with the actual same model. And there's our, right there, there's our hot water heater. And if you see, just in the background here, let me get out of the way, that is the lines coming in. The ground loop has already been installed. So let's go outside. We'll talk about some of the things we've done so far, and I'll show you the ground loop and the work that dug up our land. Okay, so we're outside now, and on the north side of the house here, you can see we've got obvious examples of dirtage and land movage and things like that. Oh, it lost me here. One sec. I'm just going to flip the camera around and we will show you. So that's the north side of our house, and down here we've got, this is a trunk line that comes out of the house. You can see our oil tank off in the distance there. We'll be very happy to have that go. And this trunk line runs all the way out through to our field, and I'm not completely sure as to what we ended up with, 300 or 400 feet of line or something like that. Okay, so here we are. We are where the trunk line that comes out of the house meets the ground loop. So I've got the ground loop behind me in the field here, and it goes out there, it goes down along the edge of the fence of the property line. It comes back over to this area, and I'll throw up a drone photo. You can see exactly what it looks like. And this that I'm standing on here is the trunk line that comes from the house and meets up with that ground loop. So there's a number of steps to getting geothermal. We'd always been thinking about it for a long time. My father-in-law had it put in, I think about 15 years ago. In the incentives that came after the financial crisis in 08-09, there was a lot of grant money being thrown around, so my father-in-law was able to do it. We just stuck with oil because it had been so cheap for so long that it hadn't really impacted on us that much. And then just this past year, with the significant spike in heating that came with the Russia invasion of Ukraine and the huge spike in oil prices, our heating costs actually went up about 30% year over year. So for the last, I'll say six years or so, it's been about $3,500 a year that we've paid for heat and hot water in our roughly 2,500 square foot home. So it's an 1869 stone farmhouse. We completely gutted it right to the stone in 1995. All new windows, spray foamed insulation, put on 2 additions, one that year and then another addition, I think, in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. And in that new addition, we put in hydronic heating that runs off the boiler. So we decided, with the grants that are available right now, so up to $5,000 for something like geothermal, and with the high price, we said, why wouldn't we do it? Because we also are stubborn, we wanted air conditioning too. So we had been paying this, like I said, this past year, about $4,500 to heat the house and hot water, and we expect it to probably stay that high or go higher, just based on the attitude in Canada towards oil from our politicians and the fact that they don't want us to pull out of the ground anymore. I won't pass any judgment on that. So I'll walk you through the process of how we've gotten so far to where we are. So the first thing we did was we went on the greenerhomes website. I'll pop a link down in the description below for that. And through that, you sign up, submit an application, and you want to find a home energy auditor. So there really weren't any home energy auditors close to us. I think maybe 90 minutes to the east. So we just grabbed one at random. I think we'd maybe looked at a couple of their websites and things like that. So they came up from the 905. It took about a month of our application sitting in the queue before we actually got contact from the home energy auditor. I think there's a combination of low staffing due to the carryover from the pandemic and just the volume of applications that are going through it. So submit our application, booked a time for our energy auditor to come up, and the energy audit took about, I'll say, an hour to an hour and a half. Lots of measurements of the house, examining our utility bill. They did a leak test where they sealed off a door and put a big fan in the door. Tried to suck the air out of the house or blow air into the house, I'm not sure which, but they can measure how leaky your house is. And then about a week or two later, we got our energy audit report, and we had talked with the auditor while he was here. We were unsure whether we were going to go with geothermal ground source or go with a cold climate air-to-air heat pump. As far as functionality, they're very, very close to each other. Geothermal is supposed to be cheaper to operate, but not by a great deal. So you can still get a cold climate air-to-air heat pump, and that are good down to -30. They're phenomenal. But just because of supply chain issues, we ended up going with geothermal. Anyway, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So we had the home energy auditor come up, do their thing, got the report a week or so later, called our trades in our area because we wanted to get a few quotes, just something reasonable that we could look at and say, okay, what's different? How did this one quote it versus this one? So we only were able to get two quotes. Other companies that we called, they would ask us, we'd say, hey, it's Dave. I'd like to get geothermal, and can you come and give us a quote? And they'd say, are you an existing customer? And we said, what an interesting question. No, I'm not an existing customer. I'm actually trying to become one right now. But simply because of their the runway of how much work they have to do because of demand, how hard it is to get staffing, and supply chain issues, they all can only do so much. And so unfortunately, and I know they don't want to be turning away work, but they have to turn away work, and they really do have to serve the people they've been working with first. So we had two quotes. The first quote for geothermal came in at $47,000, which is unbelievably high. And we just looked at that and we said, well, we're not doing that. And we chalked it up to either the person that did the quote was a little bit, it was an odd quoting experience, let me just say that. They, compared to the second person that came, which I think is probably the best heating cooling company in our area, the measurements they took, how they conducted themselves as they were going through the house and measuring things, they were quoting from a more informed and really intelligent perspective than our first quote. And the quote came back very quickly, and it came in at $27,000 plus HST. And we thought, well, that's definitely back in the ballpark of reality. We had contemplated, and I mentioned, could you also quote the cold climate heat pump? And unfortunately, because of supply chain issues, they said, we won't quote on the cold climate heat pump because we can't get any. So what we'll do is we'll quote you a regular air-to-air heat pump with a backup propane furnace. So that actually brought the price, that price was crazy. There's no point in putting in two heat sources. So we had a good conversation and we decided, you know what, let's do it. Let's go with the geothermal, and gave them our deposit of $6,000. And within about a week, they were back on the phone to us saying, hey, we're going to come out and have a quick look. And the next day they started excavating. So the ground loop installation took exactly 2 days. So day one was digging that trench line from the house, or the trunk line from the house out past our septic system to the field, and that was done with a smaller, I'll say a mini hoe. And then the next day the big excavator showed up, and they made fast work of putting that ground loop in, like I said. So once the ground loop was in the earth before it was covered, they pressure test it, and as long as that passes, it's covered back up. You could see, and I'll pop the video up here, or just a photo in the corner, where it comes through the walls. They just drilled through our cement foundation, popped the pipes through, and we've got just, it's sealed off right now, and we're waiting, now that we have the ground loop in, for our actual geothermal furnace, and that's supposed to arrive at the end of this month. So in about 2.5, 3 weeks. So let's go back to the grant process again. Because we're going with the big geothermal, or if we had gone with the air-to-air heat pump, that makes us eligible for the $5,000 grant from Natural Resources Canada, the Greener Homes program. So we get our $5,000 plus HST back for the home energy audit. We get $5,000 grant to help pay for the geothermal. And then shortly thereafter, we got this nice little email from NRCan. Their system just automatically picks up the fact that you've got an application in process and you're doing things. And that sent us a link to apply for the NRCan Greener Homes loan. So the federal government is giving us 0% interest over 10 years to soften the cost of installing geothermal. So this is the stage we're at right now. If you have any, I'm going to leave links to everything in the comments, not in the comments, but in the description below. So the NRCan thing, the Green Home loan, I think that's the only thing I have to stick in there. And if you have any questions, you're considering going through geothermal or the Greener Homes program, by all means, drop us questions down in the comments, and we'll answer them as quickly as I can. Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications, because we are going to keep updating this video series as we go through the installation of the geothermal, all the way through to getting our grant, getting the loan, after it's all inspected and installed. And we're going to continue to update this, going through our hydro bills before we do geothermal and what it looks like afterwards. And just the whole experience of, does it change the nature of the heating in the house? Can you notice it, any difference whatsoever? Because I know at my in-laws, it's a different feeling kind of heat as opposed to like an oil burner coming on, jamming a bunch of heat through the ducts. The place warms up and then it sort of just cools back down again, and then it warms back up again once the furnace comes back on. So like I said, hit the bell for notifications, like and subscribe, and we will give you all the geothermal installation and post-installation information that you could ever want. Thanks guys. See you later.